Do you know Austria? Have you heard of Austria in the world map? You know, it's in Europe, right? In Europe, there is a place called Salzburg. Have you heard of the city Salzburg? Anybody? Okay, it's a very pretty place. I've been there. I love it. She's from Salzburg. And in Salzburg, there is a palace called Schloss Leopoldskron. It's German and Austrian, so it's strange for our ears, but it's Schloss Leopoldskron. And that is how it looks. It's by a lake, okay, and it's very beautiful. It's 17th century, 18th century, and it is a wonderful palace. And Helia comes from this organization who owns the palace. They're called the Salzburg Global Seminar. They do lots of seminars there to build world peace, you know, intellectual thinking, and lots of exchanges of thoughts. So it's a very, very active organization. And they own this place, which is also a hotel. Okay? And another interesting fact, I've based a mystery novel based on that palace. So that's the interesting bit of it. Now, I'm going to give it to Helia. She'll tell you a little bit about the history of that palace. Okay? Yeah. Oh, yeah. First the AV, yeah.
Salzburg Global, it's everything what I'm trying to do as a human rights activist, and it's home. It's home.
Salzburg Global Seminar has been home to changemakers since 1947. Founded in the wake of World War II, it was the vision of a young Austrian and two Americans who saw the importance of human connection in rebuilding Europe.
The founders knew this. Europeans weren't talking to each other, and Americans weren't talking to Europeans, and that was the basis for the whole invention of Salzburg. And now I think we've got divides of equal difficulty, equal absurdity, and that some of those simply can't be handled except face to face.
Whether at our home of Schloss Leopoldskron, online, or in locations around the world, our programs today are inclusive, interdisciplinary, international, and intergenerational, and are designed to catalyze new thinking and systems transformation.
You need the passion that comes from connections across different cultures to move from just being in the realm of ideas and ideals into the realm of action. And Salzburg Global represents that possibility to go to the next step of taking action, transforming these ideas and ideals into practical effects in people's lives.
It's always this, pivotal moment that either turns very broad ideas into something tangible, or that takes something tangible that we're already doing to the next level.
The beauty of Salzburg is that it expands your belief and your capacity to engage outside of your normative space of influence. And that has been, I think, the most lasting effect.
Salzburg Global Seminar is where your mind is free from your day-to-day world, and all this happens in a calm and serene environment.
I went to the Schloss in 1990, and that was my first exposure to the bigger world. It also triggered a huge change in my professional life. Salzburg defines who I am.
So what do I wish for the next 75 years for Salzburg Global Seminar? I wish that we continue to have an outsized positive impact on individuals, on institutions, and on ideas, and that Schloss Leopoldskron remains a home for changemakers from around the world.
Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has.
So the film was about what the Salzburg Global Seminar does. How many of you understood? Could you understand the language? It was accented, right? Heavy accent. So I'll tell you what it is. There were people who were talking in it, and they were telling how Salzburg Global Seminar changed their lives. Okay, and it's changed my life too, in many ways. But I'm going to now start with Helia, who comes from the Salzburg Global Seminar, and ask her, and I'm going to request her to tell us a little bit about the history. You know, we have history, we have palaces in India, right? And forts, and they have lots of history. So this palace also has a really detailed history. Helia, can you tell us about it?
Does it work now? Perfect. Very nice to meet you all. I'm Helia. We did learn a bit about myself. Just saying that I didn't write the book because it's not by me. It's different authors. But yeah, so as you saw, and then there's a picture. So this is a palace in Salzburg, and I'm going to tell you kind of where the palace comes from. So we now live in the 21st century, right? The year 2022. The palace was built in 1730. Back then, actually, Salzburg was its own country. It's a very small town. When I say small, it's like really small. It was its own country, and it was actually ruled by the people who were ruling the church. So if you were the head of the church, which we call archbishops of the Church of Salzburg, then you were basically the king of Salzburg. Let's put it that way.
Can I give a reference to them?
Yeah.
So if you have a pandit in a temple, then he would be the owner of that village. That's how it was with them. So
exactly.
Yeah. So you know the church, right? You know churches. So you have a priest of the church, and he would then own that small area. That's how Salzburg was small.
Yeah, exactly. And so he had his own churches and he has his own palace, but he also wanted a palace that just built by him, not like from this father or something. So he decided to create this palace and build it. He even built the lake. So the lake is not real. It's actually a fake lake. I mean, it is real, but it's not like from nature. He built the lake himself and brought water. And
like you make a well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So instead of a well, he made a full lake.
I mean, he was the king and rich. He was like, I want this palace, I want a lake. So he created the palace. It took nearly 10 years to build the palace. And he only lived there for a month before he died. So not
That's
really
sad.
good.
That's sad.
That's sad.
Yeah. When you build something for 10 years
Exactly.
and you live there only for 1 month.
For a month or 2 months.
That's sad. Yeah.
I think the palace was finished in like August and he died in October.
Oh, how sad.
So that's quite sad. But then he gave the palace to his nephew, and then from his nephew to the cousins, and like it stayed in the family for nearly 90 years. But the family were not really great owners. They did a lot of gambling, they lost money, so they had to sell a lot of like paintings and statues that were inside the palace, so they had to sell it. So by the time, like after 100 years, so we're now in like 1890, 1880, the palace was not really as glamorous or as beautiful as it used to be, so they sold it to someone private. And throughout history, it had different owners. Interestingly, it was like in the 19th century, so around 200 years ago, someone bought it and turned it into a spa, like a spa resort.
You know what a spa is?
So
Yeah,
like,
okay, we all know what a spa
you get
is.
like a massage. I mean, I don't think back then it looked like what we have now as a spa, but still. But it wasn't really popular, so it was not successful. I think people back then didn't want to rest as much as they want to rest these days. So again, it had different owners until we get to 1918. So we're just finishing the First World War in Europe. And has anyone ever heard of this person called Max Reinhardt? I'm assuming no. I mean,
Have you heard of Max Reinhardt?
No.
Okay, he was an American filmmaker. Okay.
He was a theater director, he was a producer, he was an author. He was really famous, like in the 1918, 1920. He directed a lot of big films and theater productions. And he wanted a palace. He loved Austria, and you know, when you're rich, you're like, I want a palace. I think I'm rich, I want a palace. So he came to Salzburg, he saw this palace. It was not as it looks like right now. So it was like kind of a dead place. It didn't have a lot of beautiful things in it. But he decided to buy it. He was like, I'm going to buy this palace and make it my own because all the rooms are ruined. So he bought the palace and made each room completely different. So you have one room that, you've been there, so you have one room that everything is kind of white. So the walls are very like white color and some paintings, so we call it the white room. We have one room that is very green and is full of paintings of Max Reinhardt's theater productions. We call it the green room or the Chinese room. We have another room that Max Reinhardt bought a lot of paintings from Venice and hang it there. So we call it the Venetian room, which means the Venice room. So each room has its own kind of history, its own idea. He made a very big library that he really likes. Can I add to this? This library has a very strange feature. There's a secret door to it. Have you seen secret doors ever? Okay, behind. So there's a door, so you see a cupboard full of books. But actually it's not a cupboard, it's a door. You open it and there's a staircase. It's a secret staircase which goes up. It's amazing. I've stayed there and I know it's a beautiful place. Yeah. And that secret staircase is also in my mystery book.
Yeah, and also the secret staircase not only goes to the second floor of the library. If you go one floor up, it goes to Max Reinhardt's old bedroom. So when he created, he loved library, so he wanted to have a way to go from his own bedroom to the library from like a staircase that no one kind of figures out how he got there or like kind of find him, because he was very like quiet and he needed time. However, he was Jewish. Who here knows about the Second World War and the Nazis in Germany? Did you guys have that history?
Do you have it in history, the Second World War?
Yes.
You know about it? About the Jews and the Nazis?
Yes.
You know about it. Okay, fine. Yeah.
So Max Reinhardt was Jewish. So he was living in Austria, which was then occupied by the Nazis. So in the 1930s, he didn't really feel that he should stay there because his life was in danger. So he actually spent most of his time in New York. He left with his wife. They went to New York, and another sad part of history is that he never get to come back, because then he died in 1942 while he was in New York.
That's sad again.
That's sad again. Yeah. So I hope that doesn't happen to us, who is now there. But apparently, so he was always in New York. He passed away, and after the war ended, his wife, his widow, didn't want to come back because it was full of memories of him, Max Reinhardt, and their love there. So she didn't really feel like coming back, even though it was safe for her as a Jewish person to come back, but she didn't want to come back. So this is where it gets interesting for us, is that one day she was in a New York metro. So she was in a New York metro, hanging out.
Metro is the train system in New York, okay? So the train system.
So the train system, so she was in the train and hanging out with one of her best friends, who was an Austrian American who was studying in the University of Harvard in the US. So it's a very good university in the US.
Have you heard of Harvard? Okay, you will when you come to the age where you start applying to universities.
Exactly. So
it's
when you
one of the best universities in the world.
Yeah. So she was in the train with his friend, and his friend was telling this woman that, listen, we think what happened during the war was really sad, and I think no one is talking to each other. Americans are not talking to the Europeans. Europeans are not talking to the Russians. And if we don't do anything, we're going to have another war. It's very important to have conversation between politicians, between different activists.
And so he was saying to her that we really want to find a place to bring people together, like here, like now we're together, we're talking, exchanging ideas, reading stories together. They wanted to do that something as well. And so he was telling this to Max Reinhardt's wife. And he was saying like, but I don't know where to do it. I don't want to do it in the US because a lot of people are not going to come. And she was like, you know what? You can just take our palace. Go to a palace. It's somewhere in the lake. It's very beautiful. Go there for 2 months. Bring all the people you want. Talk to each other. Get food. I don't know. Find a way. And he was like, great. So they got the keys. They came in the summer of 1947. And for 2 months, so 8 weeks, like imagine this for 2 days, but imagine it for 2 months.
Yeah.
How hard is it to organize Manjiri?
I can't imagine it.
Yeah, exactly. So for 2 months, they brought nearly like 100 people from around the world together. And I mean, now the palace, you've been there, it's very gorgeous. But back then, they actually sleep in the 2 beds, you know, bunk beds.
Yeah, bunk beds. Bunkers, the bunk beds.
Yeah, exactly. So like imagine politicians or like important people, they were there and they were sleeping in bunkers in a big hallway together for 8 weeks. They didn't really have food, so they had to go like around and ask restaurants to give them like if they had extra food. I mean, they didn't have money, it wasn't sponsored or anything.
Very difficult, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah, very difficult.
But they loved it. For 8 weeks they were together. They realized that a lot of these people who were fighting have a lot in common and they have a lot of similarities. So that they wanted to do it again. So they did it for next year, again in summer for 8 weeks. And then another year and another year. And for 75 years that has been going on. And now we don't do it in summer anymore. We do it all year round.
Yeah.
We do seminars, we do conferences like this, and we don't do it just about peace. We do it in education, in culture. We bring artists together, authors, politicians, so different topics, different programs. Also, no one in 21st century can get 8 weeks off from their work.
It's too much, yeah.
So nowadays it's only a 5 days program because, you know, imagine your parents 8 weeks just go to a conference. That's not really possible these days. So now it's only a few days and we bring people together on different topics. But the goal is always to think outside the box. So if we bring together people from arts, we're going to think how we can make arts more accessible, how we can make arts for different generation. I work on a program that is actually for young people. So it is about people who want to be in politics, but they're young and they're trying to find their way in. And so that's another program. So it really changed in the past 75 years, but the goal is always to shape a better world and have a peaceful world.
Wow, that was interesting. The history, you understood it all. So how many of you have traveled? How many of you travel a lot? Out of Pune, do you travel? Yeah, which part of India have you traveled to? Yeah? Delhi and Himachal Pradesh. Okay, good. That's something like this place, of course. Where else? Rajasthan, okay. Gujarat, okay. Punjab, okay, yeah. Hyderabad. Okay, so you're a well-traveled lot. So you understand, if I were to tell you, go to, say, Rajasthan or maybe go to Himachal Pradesh and stay there for 4-5 days and talk about how to improve the community, would you like it? Yes. Yeah, so that's exactly what they're doing there. You know, they invite people from different walks of life, whether it's arts or whatever, and then they come together and they try to solve issues around the world. Helia, that's so amazing. I think, is our time already up?
Yeah, it's just about 2 minutes to go.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's good.
I want to ask them a question.
Yes.
So who here wants to come? And who here wants to come? And what topic, if you come, you want to talk about and improve? You go.
Yes, sir. Yes, say, what would you like to talk about if you were invited here? Get up. Okay, somebody else?
Somebody else who is ready.
Anybody else? Yeah, yes?
Yeah?
Sorry? Peace. Okay, you want to talk about peace. Okay.
Geopolitics.
Okay, yeah. Beauty, but beauty in what sense? Ah, okay, he wants to see the palace. Yeah, okay, you want to visit. What else? You want to discuss something? Yes?
Mystery.
Oh, mysteries. Yes, I have to tell you to read my book. It's called The Trail of Four. I think Harshavardhan has read and also visited this palace after he read the book. And then he went and met Thomas. Yes, yeah, so he knows the place. Anyway, so I think our time is almost up. This book, who wants to say? Yeah.
I want to see their culture.
Ah, the culture, yeah. So they're all curious, wonderful. And Helia, I think our time is up. And thank you so much. I wish we had the book to show them. It's a beautiful book. And I hope that you grow up and visit this place and contribute to world peace one way or the other, all of you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.